Blog Talk Radio.
Today's franchise interview shout-out goes to the Source Direct. Source Direct is an inventor's one-stop shop. Source Direct eliminates the disconnect in dealing with different companies from each phase of development and marketing. Instead, Source Direct can manage every stage of the process from the drawing board to the customer. Go to thesourcedirect.net and find out how you can get started. That's www.thesourcedirect.net.
Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Yes, while Geico could help you rack up more moolah faster than you can say metamorphosis, they've also been the fastest growing auto insurer for more than 10 years. That's more like it. Furthermore, Geico has fast and friendly claim service. That might seem like an oxymoron, but it's not. All the more reason to say no other auto insurer has more than Geico. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with the telephone doctor, Nancy Friedman. And Nancy is the president and founder of the Telephone Doctor Customer Service Training. And when Oprah, the Today Show, CBS This Morning, Good Morning America, Good Morning Canada and Great Britain, CNN, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and other well-respected radio, TV, and publications need a customer service expert, they call on Nancy Friedman, and you should too. We're going to talk to Nancy about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with the telephone doctor, Nancy Friedman. And Nancy is the president and founder of Telephone Doctor Customer Service Training. And when Oprah, The Today Show, CBS This Morning, Good Morning America, Good Morning Canada and Great Britain, CNN, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and other well-respected radio, television, and publications need a customer service expert, they call on Nancy Friedman. Hi, Nancy. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to speak with you today.
I am excited, too. This is fun. And when you tell everybody it's going to be a great show, that puts a lot of pressure on me, you know.
Well,
that puts a lot of pressure. So, I'm not going to tell any jokes, but I will be on guard here.
Oh, that's fine, Nancy. I enjoy talking to you. You and I have spoken in the past, and that's quite a long list, and it is a very impressive list, by the way. When you're going down the list of all the different shows that you've been on, I have to admit I'm a bit starstruck. I mean, what was the Oprah experience like?
That's a whole other show that you and I can talk about,
be.
because what she did and how I got vetted, I thought I was going to be with the CIA for a while, because they vetted people to the point of well, the bottom line was they had 5 interviews, and it was like, I'm just Nancy from St. Louis. What are they doing here? I'm going to go on for 15 minutes. I'm going to be off. It's an hour show.
Lord.
And it's not that I wasn't impressed or excited, but
yeah,
it was an interesting, and maybe I'll just explain exactly how I got onto the Oprah, because that's fun. I pitched her, and they said, no, we're not interested, thank you. And then they called me one time, and they said, we're doing a crisis management show. Can you come on? And I said, the only thing I know about crisis management is to call the police. I don't understand it. So she said, well, I appreciate your honesty. And that word caught her, that exchange that we did. She says, not everybody will be as honest and open with us. They all want to do everything. And I'm not all things to all people. And I said, when you're ready to do soft skills and improve the audience and give better service, call me. So about a year later, she did. And she said, well, now Oprah's on her. If you remember, there was a time when Oprah was on her people skills, everything to do with living and life and health and all that. And they called and said, we want you on. We want to talk about voicemail. And that was high, and it was just coming in. This was about 15 years ago, and voicemail was just a little baby then. Nobody knew how to use it or what to do.
True.
So there was like 5 calls vetting it. Now Oprah's going to say this, and you're going to say this, and pay attention to this and that and this and that. Okay, I'm an actress. I can roll with the punches.
Right.
So we get there, and Oprah zings out a question that had nothing to do with any of the 5 interviews. So point of that, and thank God I could roll with the punches, but it was a great interview, and thank you for asking. But it has nothing to do with franchising.
No, absolutely not. But
story.
It's still a great. I'm always starstruck, Nancy. So and I saw that, by the way. I saw you on the Oprah show. And you were just fantastic. I mean, just the way you handle yourself as a person. You're always, no matter what show you're on, you always have so much enthusiasm. And I think that's very contagious, isn't it? Absolutely.
Oh, shucks. Come on now, Marty. Oh, come on.
Well,
thank you. That's very nice.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think some of our listeners might be asking, they're saying, what the heck is a telephone doctor, and it's a great story, isn't it?
Well, and thank you for asking that, because that does get the ball rolling. I am the world's only telephone doctor, and the long story is too long for right now, so I will shorten it for you, but it is a fun story. Telephone Doctor is an international customer service training company. We're available in a couple languages, not a lot, but a couple, and we have well over thousands and thousands. We have 5 divisions, and I'll go over them very quickly for you. The story of how I got to be the telephone doctor I use in my conferences when I speak at franchise meetings, because it really is a story of how not to give up and why you should follow your passion, which is what franchising is all about.
Yeah.
So Telephone Doctor has 5 divisions. We have our online training, serviceskills.com. We have DVDs, which mirrors everything onto Service Skills. So there's still people who want to stand up and think, they say, I'm pretty, I want to stand up in front of 22 people and train. But online is more for the remote type thing. DVD is mirrored on everything we have online. We do have the event training, which is my passion, and speaking at conferences and helping people communicate better. We have Telephone Doctor University, which is here in St. Louis, Missouri. It's a 2-day facilitated class to learn the mentality, culture, and philosophy of Telephone Doctor. I do provide webinars when and one, usually a pre or post when I speak, but we do them, for, when I say normal companies, I don't mean that. I call it Gen Pop and franchise. So the general population or the franchises want a webinar. And then we have something that and we can talk about this another time or later on, but we have a new program called Soft Skills U, and that's the letter U, Soft, S-K-I-L-L-S, Skills U. And that's for the small companies that call up here and say, I've only got 7 people, I heard Nancy speak, I've only got 12 people, I heard Nancy speak, I need training. So we devised an online self-service program so that if somebody is listening and saying, hey, I'm a franchise, I've only got 20 people, I don't want to spend a lot of money, it is extremely affordable, extremely good, and you get access to everything else. The only thing you don't get is you do it online, and most people are used, it's for smaller companies, 25 and under. The larger companies will call the office and say, I really want, I want the admin challenges, I want a branded site, I want all the good stuff. So that's what we're all about. And my love of franchise started many, many years ago, which I'm glad it did. And so that our audience does know, Telephone Doctor was a franchisor. That surprises a lot of my audiences because I am no longer. We had 5 franchisees. 4 we let go very quickly, and 1 we kept too long. Usually gets a big laugh. But it wasn't for us. And it wasn't for us. I just got a call from right before you, from a huge franchise wanting our help because they're not able to mandate their 100 franchisees. They're not able to mandate customer service, so they want me to create something for them that will be easy. So the mandating becomes the biggest problem a franchisor has when it comes to customer service. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Nancy, what were the traits? What were the challenges of when you became a franchisor? What were some of the challenges? I mean, was it some of the traits of the franchisees themselves that they just weren't a match for franchising? I mean, what did you encounter? What was the experience like?
I don't know how to say this nicely, but I will. I'll try to do it in the best ladylike way I can say it. Yeah. We had 2 gentlemen come to us, and they shall remain nameless, that were big in franchising at the time. They had since retired and they saw a good thing. And they brought us a spreadsheet. And they brought us a spreadsheet and said, if we add 1 or 2 a month and it can be done, whatever they did. And the spreadsheet at the end of 5 years was, we're a small family-owned business, Marty. My husband, my son, and myself, 23 employees in St. Louis. So we're not a big company. But when we saw those figures, that spreadsheet that these gentlemen had kept, it was the hook was in our mouth. So, let's do it. I believe our biggest mistake is we didn't get to vet the people. They vetted for us.
I see.
And looking back, I believe that was the biggest mistake, because when we finally met them at Discovery Day, and they shouldn't have even been at Discovery Day. They shouldn't have been there. When we got to meet them at Discovery Day, I thought to myself, I don't know how long this is going to work, because they're bringing me wrong people. They're bringing me the wrong people. But we went ahead and we signed them on, and we gave them special deals, blah, 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 like people tell me they do too.
Sure.
but it didn't last. And the three of us looked at each other after a year or two with the four, and we said, it isn't working. The one we kept, and that's another story. But so I personally believe, and I don't know that I'm right or wrong, that if you're a franchisor, you need to either have a list of questions that you need asked and answered that are personal to you. And I work with a lot. I mean, I've seen the brokers and the consultants that they're out. Those are good people. They're great, and you should use them. But what the missing link that I found when I spoke at FBA, the Franchise Brokers Association, the missing link was the rope between the franchisor and the consultant. It's not a tight rope.
Interesting.
It's not. They're pulling. So I don't know that there's an answer, but the franchisors need to have a list of questions that they need answered.
Right.
And give them to the consultants or to your franchise development system or whoever's selling. These are the questions I want answered. I own this franchise. I founded it. Whatever you want to say. And had I done that, you would have seen a different answer. And ours was a little different because we needed three distinct, different persons. We needed a salesperson, we needed a trainer, and we needed an office person. And the ones that came in all wanted to do it themselves. You can't sell and run the office and be a trainer in one day. I mean, something's going to give, and it gave. So
that's true. Well, you've become
that's just one experience, and I'm sure there's. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm sure there's hundreds of different experiences.
Sure. I mean, and you've become very big in franchising too, Nancy. I mean, I've been aware of you for many years now. I mean, you've done an amazing job at branding yourself. What is it that you like most about franchising?
I love helping small business. I love getting in front of 500. I think you said you were familiar with Rita's Ice.
Yes, of course.
In the Philadelphia area,
They're big out here.
Well, you get 600. Yes, we don't have one in St. Louis. There's 600 franchisees. Most of them are, husband and wife working together. One guy had 6 franchisees, and helping the small business, just showing them simple, common sense concerns that the customers have, and bringing it to them in terms that they can utilize and facilitate immediately. This is not, you don't have to buy a book, you don't have to scratch your head, you don't have to watch a movie, you don't have to do anything. You just say, you know what? These are things I can use right away. And the feedback has been rewarding. So I appreciate what you say, but that's my biggest audience for the small business.
And you enjoy it so much, Nancy. You do. I mean, when I'm watching you just enjoy what you're doing. I mean, you have, I used the word earlier, you have so much energy and enthusiasm, and I think that's what draws people to you as well. It's what drew me to you. When I learned about you, I said, my God, I said, she's fantastic at what she does. I mean, it really is fantastic.
Shocked.
One of the lessons I learned from you. I'm going to make you blush a lot this show, but it was interesting. I've learned a lot of different lessons from you, and I've been studying now for years, but I just made a change in my show today, and it was because of you, and you probably didn't notice, but one of my flaws was I always say to our guests, I go, how are you doing? And it's kind of like a wasted, and I was listening to you the other day, and I said, uh-oh. I said, I better make sure that I do not say that to Nancy when I have her on the show today, because you have a lot of these, these great tips that are really so practical, and I asked my wife about it. I said, do I say that too much? And she says, you most certainly do. There's some like little things like, you say like, reps should not say like, it's not a problem, or, our computers are slow, just those tips though are just, they're so practical to the small business, aren't they?
Thank you. Yeah, they're practical for the big, but it's harder to get into the big business than it is to the smaller ones. The smaller ones, customer service is the biggest advantage to compete with the big boxes. It is just, that's as simple as I can make it. It's got to be someone who says, you know what, they don't have a lot of inventory, but man, when I walk in there, I feel good. They like me. I get a smile. It's all the things your mother taught you. This is not rocket science. This is not brain surgery. I didn't invent smiling, but That's
so
what happens
true.
when you smile at somebody. I mean, you go through the airport and somebody gives you a smile. You smile back at them. You made a friend. You didn't know their name, but you made a friend. So, you're very good at what you do, Marty, so I hope you're quite successful
thank
here.
you.
And while I'm doing this, because you have been so generous, for the listeners that we have here, and this is a surprise to you, ready for this? If they are happy with what they hear, if they are happy with what they're hearing today, what they're listening, they can email me for a complimentary book, and I will ship it out to them autographed. So it's called 50 Little Tips That Make a Big Difference, and it will be my pleasure. I hope we get 100 people that say, hey, I heard Jen Marty's show, and I want the book.
Exactly.
So
that's fantastic. I really appreciate you offering that to our listeners, because it's very practical, and you've worked with, you've probably lost count, Nancy, because you've worked with so many entrepreneurs and companies throughout the years. But I mean, from all of your experience, what are some of the most important traits that entrepreneurs can learn to be successful in business, or I think even in life, because I've learned a lot of them from you as well. Well,
you're a learner, and the old saying, when you're through learning, you're through. I believe you learn from a lot of people. Your father is one. I remember that story so much.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
I should interview you one day on that story. That's an awesome story.
Thank you.
Anyway,
I would love to talk about that.
Well, I'm going to start doing my podcast one day, and I can interview you. How's that?
I would love that. You would be a great podcaster, by the way.
Well, thank you. Anyway, if they want the book, all they got to do is email Nancy and then telephone doctor is one word, telephonedoctor.com. And no song and dance. Anyway, the traits. We have a program called The 7 Traits of Being Successful, and my husband, Dick, who writes all of our videos and helped me with my program, came up with these 7 traits. They're not the only traits that are successful, but they led the list. So the number 1 is we need to choose our attitude in advance.
Yeah.
When our feet hit the floor in the morning, that's got to be a great day. My tip for the day on LinkedIn, and I don't know if they link in with you. We're LinkedIn.
I do. I get them all the time.
I've never seen a U-Haul hooked to a hearse. We're not going to take it with us. So it's not going to go with us. So bottom line, when your feet hit the floor, I wasn't allowed to get out of bed when I was a kid without a smile on my face. My father would come in and say, "You smiling?" Yeah, here I am.
That's great.
But so you got to choose that in advance. I mean, you get up in the morning, you can either say, this is going to be a great day, or this is going to be a crappy day. And I don't know about you, but I took the great day. So that's probably the most important. The second trait that we find very important, especially for business people, is you got to visualize success. You got to visualize. If we tell our salespeople, we have 7 salespeople here. If you make a sale at 9:30, go make another call right away. You'll probably make another sale. You got to visualize that.
Yeah.
So not everything's a dark hole. Then we have humor, enthusiasm, and energy. And I've never met anybody who didn't enjoy laughing. In fact, I don't want to meet anybody
contagious, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
It is.
So
it's very contagious.
Enthusiasm, critically important in a small business. I mean, things are going to happen, and you got to keep that. One thing Dick and I are extremely passionate about is that resisting negative tendencies. We don't want to be around anybody who's hot, too cold, too fat, too thin, too tall, too short. It's hot out, it's cold out, it's cloudy, it's sunny. You know what? We just removed, Marty, all the negative people from our lives. Now, we don't have a lot of friends, but we do. We have a good life, and we don't want to talk negative.
Right.
Negative talking breeds negative things and yucky.
It does.
Yucky. The fifth of the
It's true, Nancy. I was going to say to you, as we were talking about enthusiasm's contagious, I think negativity is contagious as well, isn't it?
You bet.
When you sit next to someone who is complaining all day, and I've had experiences like that in my life. I the first part of my career was in sales. That's why I appreciate all your videos and your books. Is I found myself becoming that person too, and so it's true that negativity could be just as contagious as enthusiasm. So we have to watch out for that, don't we?
I've learned to excuse myself when somebody gets too negative. I usually say, "Excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom." I mean, I just get out of there.
Great.
I'm sorry. Yeah. You can cut that if you want, but the point is, And I didn't mean that
That's
I do
fantastic.
now. It's just what I say to the person when they're negative to me.
Sure.
I just don't want to be around them. And then you
Yeah.
got to be a whatever it takes person. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to need to do things whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
It usually is not money, because the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs that have gone into business usually have the money, and that's why they went into
Sure.
business. They have the money. But
That's
now,
true.
You got to miss the games with the kids, and you may have to miss an anniversary dinner, and you got to do whatever it takes. And there's an expression which I won't use. You just got to do whatever it takes, and if you do whatever it takes, it usually happens.
Because
Probably
it's
the
hard,
hardest
isn't it,
trait-
Nancy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's hard. Entrepreneurship is hard too, right? I mean, it's not easy. I think a lot of people have this glamorous vision of what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and it is very difficult. And all of these traits that you're listing, I mean, really help you get through the day, the week, a year, and of course, ultimately to being successful, And I think anybody can do what you're suggesting, but most people, for some reason, and I've never been able to figure this one out, don't do that. I guess that's another show in itself, why they don't do that.
Yeah, but that's not your job to figure out why other people don't do it. It's your job to figure out why you do it. And
exactly.
That's the most important thing. I stopped worrying about other people. And that comes with being over 50, I think. You just got to, maybe you're not there, but you got to get there and you got to stop worrying about other people.
It's true.
The other thing that's very important in being an entrepreneur is you got to accept change. I mean, it's going to happen. And with very few things, I mean, whether it's they're building a lane in front of your franchise and it's going to stop, it's going to keep cars from turning in left, I mean, there's all sorts of change in our lives,
right?
That can help or hurt us, but finding a way around it is the challenge, or accepting it and moving on and end a subject. You start worrying about it, then you got a problem.
And the great entrepreneurs do that, Nancy. We've referenced a lot of those stories throughout, the last 10 years, whether it was Colonel Sanders or Dave Thomas, or Fred DeLuca or any of those people. I mean, all of them ran into those obstacles and challenges that you're talking about. But the difference with them, is that they embraced change, didn't they? Where the entrepreneurs that we're unfamiliar with, that kind of failed, they didn't embrace the change, did they?
Apparently not. We just lost a great franchisor, the Ilitch, Michael Ilitch. I spoke twice at Little Caesars over the years. Fine man. And I was privy to some, not their problems, obviously, but some of the challenges they were having within the franchise chain, the system, so to speak. And I heard some of his comments, and, we will fix this. We will manage this. And it was just an attitude. It goes back to number one. It was the attitude.
Absolutely.
And the last trait that you got to have, that you must have, is we got to be grateful for what we have. There is no room for jealousy. There is no room for jealousy in being a good entrepreneur. So you asked for one trait. I gave you 7. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I love the story too, of you were talking about being grateful one time, and you mentioned, when you had, I think it was open heart surgery, many years ago, and I think you've always been a positive person, but you just seem very grateful for life and everything that you have, and you're not a jealous person, and you could just see that in your presentations.
No, you're very kind. I write the guy who did my open heart surgery. I write him a thank you note every February 9th.
Wow.
Because he's the one that in my life, changed my life. He didn't, but he put a new valve in there. And my mother taught me many years ago, you can be envious of a talent, Nancy, but don't be jealous. So I learned the difference very early on between envy and jealousy.
Yes.
It's
so
jealousy
important.
Is it's detracting from you. It's
right.
But am I envy of people who make more money? Yeah, maybe a little bit envious sometimes. But I'm not jealous. I'm happy.
Right.
So I don't really know the difference, but it made sense when I was told by my mother.
Sure, so. Of course, absolutely. From all of your experience, and everything that you've learned, because you've spoken to so many people, throughout the years, Nancy. I mean, what do customers want the most?
It's so simple. It's scary, Marty.
Mm-hmm.
It's so simple. be friendly before you know who it is. They want to be treated friendly. It's so simple. It's incredibly simple. You go to the supermarket and you don't get a smile. That registers with the customer. You go and, hey, why do people go to Nordstrom, Whole Foods, Southwest? We can make a list of the 10 big companies that are doing well: Zappos, Amazon, Apple. I don't know if you've ever been to Apple Care, ever called Apple Care. Now, that's not a franchise, I realize it, but it's an enormous company. It's huge, thousands and thousands and thousands of employees, and they got them all being friendly.
It's so important. We have a chain out here, Nancy. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're called Wegmans. I don't think they're out where you are.
I'm looking to interview him, as a matter of fact, eventually.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I've heard one. Tell me about them. Tell me about them.
Well, they're amazing. I mean, they're one of those companies. I think they're in Fortune or one of those big publications. Every year they have the most admired companies to work for, and they're usually like number 2 or number 3, but they've been in the list now for, I think it's almost like 20 years now. My question was always like, how do they do that? And I have a great customer service story. When my wife was, when she was pregnant with our son, she was in there and she was looking very pregnant, and it was raining outside. And the gentleman that rung up her order, he called someone, and he had someone walk her to the car with the umbrella, and he put the groceries in the car. And that one little instance, it made me and my wife such a loyal customer to Wegmans. It was something so simple, and it really didn't cost them a lot of money to do that. But Wegmans does that as well. They're, I hate to call them cashiers, but they're always smiling. They always have a smile on their face. And
they probably have what telephone. I apologize. My husband says you interrupt. No, I'm interjecting. I'm not interrupting.
No.
They probably have. Wegmans probably has what we say here at Telephone Doctor. We've got the 5 forbidden phrases, which we're not allowed to say within the confines of the building or anywhere else representing Telephone Doctor. It is a condition of employment, grounds for termination, and I have exercised my options. So I'm thinking that Wegmans said, hey, you want to work here? This is how we do it. This is how we do it. And if you don't do it, have a nice life. Now, franchisors, I don't know if they can put it in their papers, I forget what you call them, the things that you got to do, the secret sauce.
Right, the operations.
This is how you make the secret sauce. Well, you make the secret sauce in customer service, too. Ooh, there's a good blog title.
That's fantastic. Write that down.
My husband said to me, I will. My husband said, I'm so ADD, Marty, and he says to me, there must be 20 movie screens in your head, and you watch a different movie screen.
Well, that's the actress in you, right?
I don't know, but I do jump from topic to topic, and I apologize for our listeners.
Oh, and I love that, though.
I just listen quicker. That's all I can say.
No, it's fantastic. But those are great examples. Here's an interesting story pertaining to franchising, Nancy. In Russia, when McDonald's first opened up in Moscow, they couldn't get their order takers to smile at the customers. And that was a big part of, you're talking about the secret sauce with McDonald's is they want you to smile at the customer. Now, it doesn't always happen when you go into McDonald's, but in Russia, it was a big problem because apparently smiling at a customer in Russia, I guess it's somehow offensive. It almost means like you're mocking them, And I just thought that was so interesting. I said, oh, my God, how do you get people to smile? Yeah, it's just interesting with the different cultures.
You got to find out what is similar to smiling in Russia. That's
what
I
exactly.
would have found
what
out.
What is that? And I never went that far.
What do you do? I mean, maybe they give them the finger. I don't know. That might be smiling to them. You never know. Each countries have different cultures, and we don't know what each one does. But that's a funny story.
It is.
You asked about the most important skill, and that is be friendly before you know who it is. Just customers want to be treated as a welcome guest when they come into a company or call, and sometimes we're treated like an annoyance or an interruption. So the friendly is real important. The excitement, hi Marty, or hi Bob, or hi Mr. Smith, or hi if you don't know their name.
it's almost like a puppy dog, right, Nancy? When you have a puppy, and that puppy, you come in the house after a long day, right? And the puppy comes running up to you. It's so excited to see you. You know what I mean? And I remember someone used that analogy once, So, it's one of the things I always try to incorporate in my life is to, just and be sincere about it, is to let someone know how excited I am to see them or talk to them or whatever that may be, because it just makes the person feel welcome, doesn't it?
It does, and that's why "Hi, how are you" should be replaced with "Hi, how are you" should be replaced with "Good to hear your voice, good to see you, glad you're here." And those things are doing exactly what you said. So we've removed "Hi, how are you" from our lives. It's not said. I'll say if I see somebody, "Hey, you're looking good to see you, glad you're here, thanks for coming by." Did this ever happen to you? It used to happen to me. You haven't seen somebody in 5, sometimes 10 years, and you meet up with them, and the guy says, "Say, what you been doing? What's going on in your life?" Nothing.
Exactly.
How can nothing take 10 years? I don't understand that. But that's, what's
that's a
new?
great
Nothing.
Example.
It boggles my mind. So there's always something new in my life, and trite as it may be, I tell them, Anyway, that's I get so many stories to share. I hope this isn't the last podcast.
We could do this all day, absolutely, and that's why I think podcasting would be fantastic for you as well. I know I would listen to it. If you had a podcast, it's interesting. The majority of our listeners, Nancy, I was mentioning to you, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. Most of them, they know that they want to get into franchising, but we find in doing the show such a long time now that so many of them don't know where to begin. And you know this just as well as I do, because there's just so much out there. They don't even know where to begin. From everything you've learned with working with all these different franchisors and franchisees, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because, again, they're very confused.
Well, I just learned of some place that I wish I had known, because there are people that come to me and say, "Hey, I know you speak to a lot of franchise places. Which one's the best?" Well, how do I know? That I would never say that. But I'm sure you're familiar with Zoracle.
Yes. Okay, I know the name. Yes.
If you're not, you should be. Yeah, Roberta and Aubrey, and anyway, they've got I think it's online, Zoracle, Zoracle. Mm-hmm. It's not a personality test, but it's several questions. I want to go 10 to 20 maybe. I apologize for not being thoroughly on it. You can look them up online.
Yeah.
And it tells you at the end of the score, you should be in education, you might like military, you might like fast food, you might like. I took it, and I didn't even want to be a franchise. I just took it a month or so ago.
Right.
And it said I should be teaching, and I should be in education, and I should be not a hands-on person. So
wow.
it's a lit, and it just nailed me. It nailed me. The bottom line is I'm not a hands-on I'm not a detailed person.
Right.
I need to wing it a lot more, and I can wing it in what I do. And I'm educating, and I'm into education. So it really was interesting. But I know they do very well with helping up-and-coming people who want to look into buying a franchise. And any franchisor you talk to will know about Zoracle. They're quite well known. I was happy to meet them finally.
So you think that's a good place to start? And it sounds like Zoracle goes deep. Yeah, it's a starting place, because again, with like 80 industries out there, it's like, how do you know? We find that a lot of people, they'll go into a particular franchise and they'll say, wow, I wish I owned one of these, without really knowing anything about the corporate culture or thinking about the day-to-day or anything like that.
Or exactly. How hard it is, how you got to get up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. to get there to open the store at 7 a.m. if it's fast foods, blah, blah, blah. And the hiring of people and the churn that go, OMG, it's you got to have some real backbone to own a franchisee. And that's why I admire the entire business. They all have, they have the great franchisees, the ones that are making money, and then you have the ones that are not making so much money. But that's America. You make as much as you want to put into it.
Absolutely. Where do you see Telephone Doctor in the future, Nancy? Again, the company's been very successful. You've done a great job at branding the company. You've done a great job at branding yourself. Have you, thought about, like 5 years down the road where you see the Telephone Doctor?
Yeah, we have, and that's the fun of having a son who wants to take over in the business, and
that's great.
Working. David David is running the inside, which I did for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
He was selling and helping out and doing all the. Now I said, you know what? I'm still president and I'm still active and I'm still speaking, but he's making the bottom line go up, and it's with these 5 divisions. The online training is where it's going.
Sure.
Each year he puts 1 or 2 new series on serviceskills.com. Flagship, of course, is the customer service training, but we have management, mentoring, leadership, teammate things, all sorts of things. If you go online and you happen to look at and you can go online at serviceskills.com and just see it all. It's quite transparent.
Right.
Everything's there. And then, as I say, if you're a small business, you can go to Soft Skills U and get it on yourself. Nobody has to bother you, or you don't have to bother anybody. I just have to go shopping to know that Telephone Doctor will live a while.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to go shopping.
Right. That's
stores.
True. Right. And that's where you get a lot of your great stories. I mean, there were so many. One of my favorite stories you tell is where you went into a shoe store and you asked the woman for your shoe, your size, and she said, no, we don't have them. And you said, well, we just go back and double check. You're talking about double checking, and that's so important, isn't it? And it was a great story where she did come back and she said, yes, we do have them, and there's so many of those stories. There's a great story where you were talking about a woman that had a hangover and she wasn't particularly kind, and she's sharing her life story.
My goodness.
Well, you can see I absorb these stories like a sponge because, these are great stories that I can share with my students as well, referencing you, of course, but I mean, there's stories that make such an impact because you're right. That's all you have to do today is just go shopping almost anywhere. And there's so many companies still don't get it right.
If I could make money from the list of companies that people, have you ever called this cable company? Have you ever been to this doctor?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to this? Well, I many years ago, that's how I started. I called my insurance company and I said, your people stink. And he said, what happened? I said, well, they're so rude. They're so unpleasant. They're so unhealthy. I don't want to do business with you anymore. And he said, well, come on over and show us what to do. And that's how it all started. But I'm not able anymore to go up to somebody and say, your people stink. I do have one funny story that why I don't do that anymore. I called a woman. It was a franchise, as a matter of fact. She shall remain nameless. And I got her on the phone, and I said, forgive me, I'll call her Susie, for saying anything, but the young lady who answers your phone was terrible. She was rude, and I told her that. And she said, well, I'm going to tell you, that's my daughter.
Oh.
Well, I felt like,
ouch.
I was this ouch. And I said, well, I apologize. She said, no, the damage is done. Goodbye. Thank you. 3 years later, the woman calls me, so help me God. She calls me up. She says, do you remember me? I said, how could I forget you?
Sure.
I put my foot in my mouth. I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
She says, well, you were right. She says, you were right, and I want you to come speak to my franchise meeting.
Wow.
So she remembered me. It wasn't the best way I want to be remembered for. But
sure, of course.
It was a very big franchise. It still is. She's still healthy. She's still president of the organization. But she said, I just wouldn't look at what was really hurting my business, and it was her.
That's an amazing story. It's interesting as you reflect back on your life, Nancy, as you look back now, I mean, how all the pieces kind of came together, and that's what I get when listening to your presentations too, is, from where you began and how these certain events kind of led to where you are today. It's really quite amazing, isn't it?
It's been a good ride, and like we say, we're still pedaling. We're still pedaling. But that particular story, Marty, made me realize that when somebody is bad or rude to me, I spank him with my wallet. I don't report him. I don't put a bad review. We just don't go back. And that's probably what I wouldn't. It turns out she's a great friend now, and she's she recommends me and yada yada yada. But man, that was not the right thing to say. So I just or you go to somebody else, or I should have said, well, who is that person on the phone?
Sure,
and if she said, that's my daughter, I wouldn't have said anything. So it was many years ago, and I was not as savvy as I am today. I learned.
It's fantastic. I mean, you have so many of these great stories that I just love to listen to,
I'd like to give you a
Oh, go ahead.
I keep interrupting you.
No.
I'd like to give you a compliment, and that is you were probably one of the best hosts I've had in a long time, and I've been on every major radio station. Well, and I mean that. There are so many that that just want to talk about themselves, and you really brought Telephone Doctor and me into it. And for your listeners, I thank you for allowing me to share some of the input. And if they want the book, it's Nancy@telephonedoctor.com.
That's fantastic. Are there any other websites you'd like them to go to, Nancy, before we wrap things up? I mean, I know you have several different websites.
We have NancyFriedman.com. NancyFriedman.com. If they are looking for, how can I get Nancy at my conference? That's my passion. But if they're looking for how can we get some of the training that Marty and Nancy talked about, then it would be Service Skills with an S, serviceskills.com.
Okay.
Serviceskills.com. And if you say I heard it on the podcast, then they'll send a book to you too. So.
That's fantastic. It's a great offer for our listeners. And again, I hope you get 100 requests for those, because
I hope I get 1,000. That's okay.
Let's make it a million.
What? Even if I get, even if I get one, visualize success, huh? Even if I get one, that will be success, because you know what it takes to have somebody pick up the phone and do something? It takes a lot for them. It takes a lot for somebody to come in. We used to own a radio station, and when we sold the advertising, people would say, I want to know how many people come in here because of your ads. And I said, well, you can't just ask everybody, how'd you hear about us? You just don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Just if business goes up, it worked. If business goes down, maybe it didn't.
Exactly.
That's the simplicity of my life.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you one more of my favorite Nancy Friedman stories is the one of the books that I love that you were telling a story about. You were in a Barnes and Noble one day or one of those bookstores, and you picked up The Secret, and I love that story because it made so much sense because I've read that book, and I've seen the video, and it was kind of like talking about, I guess, visualization, or just ask for what you want and you'll get it. And you said, okay, you closed the book and you said, I'm a dentist.
Yep.
And it didn't happen. And I said, wow. I said, that is brilliance. I said, why didn't I think of that?
Well,
it's clever.
That's a real, think about what you want and get it. The thing that was left out was think about what you want equals hard work, and then you'll get it.
Yes.
I mean,
exactly.
It just doesn't, you got to work your behind off to some of these things that we want. And,
I'm glad
I
you
believe in the
mentioned
upper
that.
power and I believe in praying and all that stuff, but you got to help them along a little bit.
Right. You have to put the work into it, and I think sometimes that's a misperception of franchising, Nancy. I don't know if you've experienced it, but I think sometimes there's some people out there that think a franchise might run on automatic pilot. And from everything that we've learned in doing the show over a decade now is, we've learned that it is hard work. It doesn't matter if it's a Subway, if it's a Rita's, or any of the other franchises out there. It's still hard work, isn't it?
You bet. There, very little comes easy in this life. Very little. Just
absolutely.
My husband or my father used to say, you don't play ball with the Yankees the first year. You got to work your way up, the minors, etc. So, yes, there are exceptions.
Great analogy. Yeah.
Well, there are exceptions. There's people born with a silver spoon; they can go with what they want. But that's not, America is built with the small business, and franchising is such a huge part of that. It's just a huge part of it. I'm such a fan. Do I wish I were a franchise again? Sorta, but it will never happen. It is not for us. Would I like to see? Early on, people said, "Where do you want to be with Telephone Doctor?" Well, I wanted to be like Sylvan Learning. A building, in every city.
Exactly.
But
it's a different animal, though, isn't it, Nancy? It's interesting. Again, doing the show such a long time now. We've heard a lot of those stories. Where a business is very successful, and then they get into franchising, and they find that it's a totally different animal, a different part of the business that some franchisers find frustrating with. We've had a number of examples of that on the show.
Oh, I'll bet, and I'm going to start listening to the shows because A, you're very good, and B, learning more about the industry is critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, franchising is it's fun. It brought the fun into my life.
Yeah.
But for those that are into it, I mean, I don't get privileged information by any means, but I get it brought behind the scenes sometimes.
Right.
And I don't even need to sign a confidentiality. I don't go talking about one to the other, but.
Right.
I see things and I think, oh my gosh, this wasn't for me. But in some cases, it works so good.
That's fantastic. Well, that's great.
Well, I really